quite easily. Bit of a jumbled start there. I'm going to call my predictions for the 2018 Formula One. Have been released yet, so I'm basing this off of general concern for driver potential. I've weighed up everything in my prediction. I'm very analytical when it comes to stuff like that. I'm not going to give you who they're with, obviously. So we're going to start at number 10. We're going to go for a man who's always consistent for no matter which team he's been with. And they have said they've got an amped up car for this year. But I don't think it'll have that much effect because a lot of other teams are going to be ramping up the pressure this year. So it's not just on this guy. This man, number 10, is Nico Hülkenberg from Renault. We're going to call him at number 10 because he is consistent. But the Renault, it's quick, but I think we can all agree, even with Renault engines, it's more likely that the McLarens and the obviously the Red Bulls will be faster than the Renaults this season. Number 9, number 8 in retrospective order, Perez and Ocon. I rate Ocon as a better driver than Perez. Both of them Force India. Force India, it's not one of my favourite teams, but they're my favourite underdog team. Very consistent for a team who, you know, if you said it to someone, not a lot of people would recognise the name. So I think they definitely will have another solid season for being an underdog team. Despite all the it's only going to be enough to see him down into 7th, and that is Fernando Alonso. I would love for Alonso to maybe win the Australian, make a statement straight back, but I think reality will hit McLaren very quickly when they realise that, yes, they may have Renault power units now, which will make them quite competitive. They just haven't got what the Ferraris, what the Red Bulls, what the Mercedes have. I mean, you could argue McLaren's got one of the best chassis, but, you know, it's a tough one to call, but I just don't see Alonso doing that great. Now, I will say this with hindsight, with the people I've picked for 6th and 5th, I'm not going to lie, I would say these three are definitely going to vary. I'm not going to say these three positions, 7th, 6th and 5th, are ironclad in my prediction, but fairly certain of it. 6th, Kimi Raikkonen. Because out of the top 6 drivers in the top 3 cars, he is probably going to be the most unreliable. In my opinion, well, Kimi Raikkonen is my favourite driver on the roster, but age has a factor, and unfortunately he's one of these drivers who are being affected by time. It's something that clearly doesn't affect Fernando Alonso, but he's a bit like the Zlatan Ibrahimovic of the Formula One world. 5th, Bottas, and I'll explain that one very soon. Bottas obviously in a Mercedes, and if you didn't know already, Raikkonen will be in a Ferrari this year. So yeah, straight into 4th, Daniel Ricciardo. I think Red Bull are going to step up their game seriously this year, and I think that's going to affect Valtteri Bottas, because there are only 3 or 4 drivers out there that have the potential to outdrive Bottas in the cars that they're in, and just in general skill, and I think that's the 4 guys I've picked in the top 4. Number 4 being Daniel Ricciardo, because he's very good, but he's been eclipsed by number 3, his teammate Max Verstappen, who once Raikkonen retires will be my official my favourite driver on the roster. This kid has such a huge future on him. And, you know, it's hard to believe at 20 years old I can call this guy a kid, because he is still younger than me. But, I mean, the way he drives, it's unbelievable. His aggression, his technique, his late braking, his overtakes, and his desire to win, unrelenting desire, I'd go as far to call it. And it's already won him, you know, he's already won him races, that attitude. And that's something Max... last year he had a lot of unreliable issues, a couple of crashes. He neatens that up and he becomes a wise driver. I would put him up in 2nd, maybe 1st eventually, once the Red Bulls have established a better car again. And these are the 2 I couldn't decide, ladies and gentlemen. You know there's only 2 big Formula 1 drivers left that I'm going to pick between, and that's between Hamilton and Vettel. Who's going to win the championship this year? Well, I'm going to be very boring. I'm sad to say, because it saddens me as much as it saddens a lot of people who enjoy variety in sport, but I'm going to say Vettel 2nd, Hamilton 1st. Vettel has just as much desire as Lewis Hamilton. He has a car pretty much almost on par with Hamilton's, and they've won equal amounts of world championships, if I'm not mistaken. Vettel lost it last season because of emotion, but I'm going to give him this advantage like I gave Bottas an advantage over Raikkonen, in that simply the car is better. And I know this year it's not like the Mercedes are suddenly going to be, a middle team or the second best team. They're coming into this as the best team, like they have the last few years. They came into Formula One. Well, sorry, not they came into Formula One, but they came into this winning streak when they were not favourites. But since then, they have been favourites. But it's just having that. They came even when we didn't expect them to really bring it, and they still brought it. I just think Mercedes right now they've worked their way into the new rules so perfectly that they are now the dominant team in Formula One. So that's my predictions. Hulkenberg, Perez, Ocon, Alonso, Raikkonen, Bottas. Have I missed anyone out? No, I haven't. Ricciardo, Verstappen, Vettel, Hamilton. I'm sorry it's a bit boring if you thought I was going to say someone other than Lewis Hamilton, but that doesn't mean I'm not hopeful. I personally would like to see many people flourish this year. So, the Dan Nelson out, and thank you for listening.